How did you meet the partner who turned your life upside down, for better or worse? I met my soulmate at my grandfather's funeral while ugly crying into a box of tissues, and he was the only person who didn't try to console me with empty platitudes. What I didn't know was that his family was the reason my grandfather was dead. My grandfather Luis raised me after my parents died when I, 26F, was 7. He was this tough construction worker who showed up to every school event in his work boots, beaming with pride. When he died in a scaffolding collapse 3 months ago, I thought my world had ended. The funeral was small, mostly other workers and neighbors. That's where I met Ajax, 28M. He was sitting 3 rows back, wearing an expensive suit, but looking genuinely devastated. When I started ugly crying during the service, he was the only person who didn't look away or try to comfort me. After the burial, while everyone else gave me the usual "he's in a better place" speeches, Ajax said something that stopped me cold. He told me that losing someone who raised you felt like losing your foundation and your future at the same time. I stared at this stranger who had just described exactly what I couldn't put into words. He introduced himself as Ajax Morales, said he worked in legal aid helping construction workers. He'd known my grandfather through his advocacy work. We talked for hours. Ajax listened to every story about Luis without trying to rush me through my grief or offer solutions. When the last guest left, he stayed to help clean up. Before leaving, he wrote his number on a piece of paper and said if I ever wanted to talk to someone who understood, he'd be there. I called him 3 days later. Ajax became my lifeline through those first impossible weeks. 3 weeks after the funeral, he kissed me for the first time in Luis's garage, surrounded by sawhorses and half-finished projects my grandfather would never complete. But then weird things started happening. The first time, I was showing Ajax the accident report, and he got uncomfortable when I mentioned the building address. Then he described the lobby layout in detail, the security setup, even that the elevators were being upgraded. When I asked how he knew so much about a random office building, he said his legal aid office worked with construction companies in that area. The second incident happened when Ajax offered to help me find witnesses to the accident. Within 3 days, he had detailed information from an inspector who'd been at the scene. The inspector told him Luis died instantly, wouldn't have suffered. The third red flag came when I mentioned wanting to investigate whether Luis's death was part of a pattern of safety violations. Ajax immediately started discouraging me, warning about the emotional damage of getting involved in legal investigations. He painted a picture of grieving families being exploited by lawyers and investigators. Everything he said sounded caring and protective, but I noticed he never addressed whether other workers might be at risk. He focused entirely on my emotional well-being and completely ignored the possibility that preventing future accidents might be worth some discomfort. Yesterday, I found Luis's notebook where he'd been tracking safety violations at job sites. Page after page of missing guardrails, improperly secured scaffolding, supervisors pressuring workers to skip safety protocols. The final entry was 2 days before he died. I realized I'd spent 3 months being comforted when I should have been fighting for answers. So I started researching the companies involved in Luis's accident. What I found made me throw up. The construction company responsible for safety oversight at the site where Luis died, Morales Construction LLC. Ajax's last name is Morales. I'm sitting here with business documents spread across Luis's kitchen table, and my hands won't stop shaking. I can see Ajax's signature on legal papers, his name on contractor licenses. His family's company was paid to prevent exactly the kind of accident that killed my grandfather. The man who held me while I grieved might be connected to the people responsible for causing that grief. Ajax is coming over tonight. He thinks I want to discuss some information I found about the accident. He has no idea I've discovered everything. I think the person I fell in love with was sent to make sure I never sought justice for the man who raised me. Edit. He just texted that he's on his way. I'm terrified, but I can't keep living in this lie. Luis would want me to be brave. Wish me luck, Reddit. I think I'm about to confront the person who used my grief to cover up my grandfather's murder. Update coming soon. I need to process what just happened.